All right, 22 years ago, last Thursday, one of our nation, one of the world's greatest iconic figures, entertainment figures, passed away. The 22-year anniversary of the passing of Frank Sinatra. My next guest was the pallbearer for Frank Sinatra at his funeral, which of course implies he was a deep personal friend, also an iconic comedian on America's entertainment stage. He's the author of the book, Still Standing, My Journey from Streets and Saloons to the Stage and Sinatra. Let me welcome via Zoom from Los Angeles, Tom Dreesen. Tom, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Rick. Yeah, it was a week ago. I was 22 years. I was a pallbearer, but I also spoke at his funeral too.
Wow.
And it was recently somebody asked me, what's the most amazing Hollywood moment you had in the 14 years you toured with Frank Sinatra as his opening act? What was the most amazing moment, Hollywood moment, they said. And it was certainly that funeral. It was in that church were 628 of what Hollywood was all about.
I bet.
And it was an hour and a half of make your hair stand on end, especially me. I shined shoes in taverns when I was a little boy, and Frank Sinatra was on all the jukeboxes. And I shined taverns as a little boy because I grew up very poor. And here I was, from a little boy in the south side of Chicago, hearing Sinatra on the jukebox, the one day carrying his coffin out of a church in Beverly Hills, California. Amazing. And that's what the book is about, that journey.
And we'll talk about that. That's a great story, Tom. As someone who knew him so well, what do you miss the most about your longtime deceased friend, Frank Sinatra?
Well, on two levels. In show business, as a stand-up comedian, to walk out in front of 20,000 people night after night, 45, 50 cities a year, and not one of them came to see you. They all came to see the other guy. That challenge. But the electricity in that arena, one time out in Hawaii, 40,000 people outdoors. The electricity, wherever Frank Sinatra went, if it was Omaha, Nebraska, or New York City, wherever he was, the electricity, Frank Sinatra's in town. I miss that kind of electricity. But on a personal note, night after night, when I stayed at his home like 5-6 times a year down in the desert Rancho Mirage in Palm Springs, and we would sometimes, he stayed up till dawn. He never went to bed till the sun came up his whole life. Whether we were on the road or off the road, he was nocturnal. And so he would get me sometimes 3:30 in the morning in the bungalow that I was staying in on his compound and say, let's take a ride, Tommy. And we'd ride around the desert till the sun came up. And then he sometimes, not often, but sometimes he would stop being Frank Sinatra. And he'd become a little boy from Hoboken. And I was a little kid from Harvey, Illinois, in the south side of Chicago. And we'd talk about our childhood. I miss that kind of intimacy with this icon. This incredible icon.
Wow. And, I go out to Palm Springs once in a while, and I frequent an Italian restaurant whose name I can't recall. And they say Sinatra was a frequent...
in the desert?
Yeah.
Well, there were many. We went to Lord Fletcher's and, of course, Dominic's,
Dominic's. That's it. Yeah. Again, you're in a great career as one of America's leading comics. In fact, you and a former actor, comedian named Tim Reed, who starred in WKRP Cincinnati, were America's first black and white comedy team.
Yes.
Now, you say that The Tonight Show, you made, I believe, over 61 appearances on The Tonight Show. You say The Tonight Show, your very first appearance, I believe it was, changed your life. That's a dramatic statement. How so?
Well, first of all, Tim Reed and I were from 1969 to 1975, were America's first black and white comedy team. History shows we were the last. There were no comedy clubs in those days. We worked all black clubs in the North and the South, all white clubs. And we were groundbreakers. And it's in a book that's out also years ago, called Tim and Tom, an American comedy in black and white. And now Netflix is interested in maybe doing a 6 one-hour series on what it was like in that era. But when the team broke up, it broke my heart. I thought we were going to become the greatest comedy team in America, and that was my dream. But Tim more or less wanted the team to break up, and I ended up on the West Coast from Chicago. We ended up in L.A., hitchhiking up and down Sunset Boulevard. I have a wife and 3 kids that were in Chicago, and I was broke. And now I'm sleeping in an old abandoned car, a Nash Rambler up on blocks. The front seat came down. I'm washing up in a gas station every morning, and in really tough times. But it took me a while to get on at the Comedy Store. And then finally, after about 9 months, I got the Tonight Show to come and see me. And I auditioned that night with a new comedian named Billy Crystal. I don't know whatever happened to him, but anyhow, I got the Tonight Show. And in those days, in 1975, wherever you went in America, people say, "What do you do for a living?" You say, "I'm a stand-up comedian." The next question out of their mouth was, "Oh, yeah, you ever been on Johnny Carson?" If you hadn't been on Johnny Carson in the eyes of America, you just weren't a comedian. You might want to be one, going to be one, but you weren't one now. So one appearance on that show, 26 million people watch that show. One appearance, Freddie Prinze got a sitcom the next day. I did one appearance on the Tonight Show. CBS signed me to a development deal the following day. I never stopped working from that first appearance on the Tonight Show. It totally changed my life and led me to working with Sammy Davis Jr. and Smokey Robinson and Natalie Cole and Gladys Knight and the Pips and all these people. But then, of course, finally with Frank Sinatra.
You know, Frank started out as a supporter for John F. Kennedy, and then he evolved into a Republican a Republican voter. What do you think Frank would think of today's political climate that we're in?
Yeah, this is only my opinion from being with him. His core values were that of whatever you only deserve in life what you work for. You know, he was a very generous man and very charitable and everything. But I believe that he, he later supported Ronald Reagan and everything. I believe his mother was a Democratic precinct captain in Hoboken. You know, he grew up as a Democrat, as I did, a Chicago Democrat. But the Democratic Party of those days is totally different from today. Today, it's like Ronald Reagan once said. He said, "I didn't leave the Democratic Party; it left me. It's gone so far to the left." And I think Frank's core values were more center or center right. You know, that's my opinion. You know, everybody else might.
As a comedian, Tom, that's a great analysis you just gave. I appreciate what you said. As a comedian, what anything going on in today's climate that gives you material?
First of all, when you dissect comedy, it gets boring. But when you're writing a joke, comedy is 2 things. Number one, it's 9/10 surprise. The audience laughs because they didn't think you were going to say that or do that. So the setup line has to hide the punchline. And the other rule is there are no victimless jokes. Who's the victim in the joke? And the more you can hide the victim, the better it is. Today, you can't hide the victim. Every joke is at the end, F Trump.
Yeah.
So you see it coming. You can see all the late night talk show guys, and you know where the joke is going. Today the politically correct police are doing all they can to destroy comedy. You know, you can't say this and you can't say that. When you box in a comedian, you take away all their creativity. You can't box them in.
What do you think of today's media?
First of all, it's so obvious. It's so obvious. In the old days of journalism, when I started out in show business, no one ever printed a story about you unless they called you first and said, "I'm checking this out, Tom. We read last night that you and Frank were in such and such a bar and a fight broke out," or whatever. But we're checking it with you. Today, they run with it. The media doesn't have, you're no longer, by the way, you're guilty before you're proven, it used to be you're innocent until you're proven guilty. It's totally the opposite. You're guilty in the media. Whatever they print, that's it. And then the retraction, as you know, is on the back page or never a retraction. I think they quit being journalists, honest journalists, a long time ago. It's a shame. It's a shame they're no longer journalists.
Tom Dreesen, again, one of our society's leading comedians throughout, historically speaking and currently. Your book is called Still Standing: My Journey from Streets, Saloons, and the Stage to the Stage and Sinatra. Co-written by a friend of mine, Johnny Russo, who used to write for Saturday Night Live, along with Darren Grubb. Tell us about, in the remaining moments, tell us about your book.
It is what you said, my journey. I'm a street kid. I don't have a degree from academia, but I got a doctorate from the streets. I grew up on the streets. I shined shoes in taverns, set pins in bowling alleys, caddied in the summertime, sold newspapers on the corner. all to feed my brothers and sisters. I had 8 brothers and sisters.
Wow.
Grew up in a shack, no bathtub, no shower, no hot water. I dropped out of high school at 16, went into the Navy, got a high school diploma, and went to junior college nights. It's a triumph. My book is still standing. And in the last chapter, which I won't give away, shows you that I was knocked down again, but I got back up again. I've been knocked down a lot in my life, but I kept getting back.
Sounds like a Sinatra song.
Standing the double entendre, I'm still standing as a stand-up comedian, and I'm still on my feet as a human being.
Beautiful a beautiful story you tell about your life, and the way you say it, Tom, it almost sounds like a Sinatra song.
Well, if I close my eyes right now, no matter where I'm at in the world, if I close my eyes, I see a little boy with a shoe shine box walking in the snow, into tavern after tavern, trying to make money to feed his brother and sister. That's how I perceive my whole life, no matter where I was, from that little boy's viewpoint.
Tom Dreesen, we thank you for joining us. The book is available at Amazon.com, and we wish you luck on the book. We hope the comedy venue opens back up again for people like yourself to be able to perform, and we look forward to having you back again on the show in the future.
Anytime. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, broadcasting from the Liberatory CPA Studios. It's really my home studio, but it's sponsored by the Liberatory CPA Studios. I'm Rick Amato, back after this.